Uh, hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me on Person Behind the Pages, the show where we get to know the people that make the things we love. I'm Nicholas W. Fuller, your host, and I'm joined today by Josh Walker. How you doing, Josh?
How you doing, Nick?
Josh, when I say Joshua, do you feel like you're getting called up to the principal's office?
I do. That's my mother's name for me and my wife's name for me,
Oh
but not my name for
no,
me.
that's so funny. That's the troublemaker name. I get it. I get
That's
it.
it. That's it.
Yeah, when I was in trouble when I was really young, it would be Nicholas Warner Fuller, and I'm like, oh, I really screwed up, right?
Warner's a great middle name though.
I do like it. I do like it.
That is fantastic. Yeah,
All right, all right. Let me work on a little technical issue here for just a
no
second.
problems.
Hmm. So we're live on YouTube, and hello, anyone watching. We should be live on Twitch as well, but apparently we're having an issue going live on Instagram, so I
Okay.
think we're just not gonna go live on Instagram today. That's fine. All right. That's all right. If you're there in the chat, I'd see you, Richard. Richard saying, "Congrats on 300 subs, Nicholas." Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, congrats,
Appreciate it.
Nick.
Thank you.
Big
Appreciate it.
news, man.
All right, we're moving on up. We're moving on up. It's been a good week. It's been fun. Um, I'm using a different camera, so it's a little dark. I
Mhm.
haven't figured out all the settings, but eventually this will be really
It's looking
nice.
pretty good.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you. So, all right, Josh, not Joshua.
That's the
so
first
much
rule, Nick.
so much to talk about. Um, First of all, the rest to the gods. I keep my scumbag brain keeps wanting to say the rest of the gods, but I
I
like.
think everyone's does.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
The rest to the gods. I like it.
Yeah.
Your debut novella, right? What's the word count on your novella?
33K, I think, is where it finished.
33K. Love it.
Yeah.
I gotta give you a hard time though. Why did nobody tell me that you couldn't get your career started with half a book? Like,
Yeah, look, I mean, so the way that this book, this is it here. This the way that this book came
beautiful.
around is very random.
Uh-huh.
Basically, I wrote book one of my main series, which is coming out hopefully in June, actually, An Exile of Water and Gold. And when I finished that book, like I was listening actually again to Neil Gaiman say this the other day in an interview with Tim Ferriss from a few years ago, when he's talking about how the first draft is for nobody, right?
Sure.
And so I got to the end of the first draft of Exile, and I sat back and looked at it and thought, one, I need a break. I need a damn break. And two, like these characters, some of them are great and some of them aren't working. And there was one in particular that I really wanted to pull apart. So in the 3 weeks that I had scheduled for a break before revising, I ended up writing this.
Wow.
And I kind of
You
just punched
banged
it out
out what
during
33,000 words in 3 weeks,
yeah,
bro.
it came very naturally. It's one of the first times in my life that I've been able to just kind of let the story take a run. Part of that is because I think there's a lot of me in this book, and there's a lot of me in the main character.
Mm-hmm.
Her name's Nisha. So I sat back and did that over a few weeks, and then I started sending out some beta copies, and the feedback I was getting was very, very positive. Um, and I started thinking I could probably put this out first and have something ready to go to
Yeah.
kind of build a foundation on. And it doesn't matter if the snowball starts rolling slowly, because it will eventually pick up the pace, right? Like that's the mindset.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got it out in January, and it
All
did
right.
really well. And I'm very proud of it. It's one of my favorite things I've ever written. But it is
Nice.
short, it's tight, and it's a really cool introduction to the world, I think.
I definitely uh I relate with the writing something and needing a break and stuff, and then also feeling, yeah, I'm gonna do something special for you, Josh. Hang on just a second.
I'm excited.
Here we go. Got this buried on the bookshelf where it belongs. Should be in a literal trunk, but I told you before, Josh, that I wrote a book like 11 years ago. You're gonna see just how bad a cover can be. Look at this. Look at.
Oh
Oh,
wow. But in some ways that's fantastic, right? Because that's a remnant. That's
yeah,
like that's an immortalized word, right? That's the power of this.
yeah. No,
That is
I'm
so
happy
cool.
about. Yes,
Mm.
Josh
And
casually killing it
what
right
genre
off
were
the
you
bat.
writing in?
So this is why this is the real reason why
Exciting.
this is a trunk book. Because
Yeah.
so this was the first book I wrote, and I was like, what am I gonna do? This is a like historical fiction coming of age book that like I think my grandma bought a dozen copies, and that was very nice. And like then I sold maybe one more.
Yeah.
So there you know. Uh,
That's so neat.
but yeah, I mean I got a few copies. But yeah, the cover is like it takes place like I said historical fiction. It takes place in Sevilla, Spain, and
Yeah, okay.
that's a painting that's now in public domain because it's so old of
Oh,
there,
that's fantastic.
right? And I
That is
was
so cool.
this is like Amazon cover generator, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. Don't do
Oh,
that. You know.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get something out there. That's the way it is, you know.
Joshua.
Hey, Abel.
I
Fire.
think that means that you're in trouble with Abel, right?
Yeah, I'm always in trouble with Abel.
I got it in glosses, boss. Yep. Yes, well done
That's
on
it.
keeping
Yeah.
that relic. Agreed. Yep. Keep a few copies there. That's for
Hey,
me.
let me show you a relic real quick, Nick.
Oh. We get to all the behind the scenes, guys.
So
If
this book never made it, but it did go out. Um, I did submit it to many agents in 2018 and 2019, and it was called The Child of Light, and
nice.
it was a bit of a chonker.
It was a
That
yeah,
was kind of like that was my first kind of epic fantasy.
love it, dude.
Um, and like you have to keep this stuff. You got to remember where you
Yes.
came from and how you
Right?
developed as a writer.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's it.
We should swap trunk books.
Hey,
That'd be fun.
I became.
All right. All right. So if you're just joining us now, talking with Josh Walker, author of The Rest to the Gods, debut author, joining us from Australia. Thanks again for making the time at what is the dead of night for you.
Yeah.
um, so we want to talk a little bit about The Rest to the Gods. Have I was thinking about maybe playing a little bit of a game. Have you ever played Mad Libs
Sure.
before? I don't know if this is an American thing or not.
I have not played Mad Libs before.
No
You'll have to
worries.
explain the rules to me.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I will not explain the rules, but we're gonna play anyway, and you'll explain as we go along.
Okay.
uh, uh. All right. So the rest to the gods. We want to talk about the book. We want to talk about kind of different elements of the book. So when you're thinking about the world of the rest to the gods, tell me like what makes the world unique? Is there like a very unique magic system? Is there some really unique creatures? So what makes the world unique?
That is a very good question, and I'm sometimes proud to say this, and sometimes not proud to say that I think sometimes it's too unique, right? Like I had this big lecture from my wife because she always says nothing can be too unique. You're either unique or you're not. But this is too unique in some ways, and I've found this to be a problem when I'm coming up with comp titles because nothing really seems to sit right in my mind. And
Hmm.
even after asking people who have read it, actually, I asked Abel this the other day, and he had to go back and think about it, and the answer I got was brilliant. But um, the world itself is essentially um, it's a world that is partially inspired by um, parts of my heritage. So there are aspects of um, Lebanon, so mountainous, rugged Lebanon, and therefore there are also aspects of France, and there's also a city that is partially inspired by ancient Greece. And so, in terms of like the real world influences, that's all there. The
Okay.
naming is all inspired by that as well. But then we've
Hmm.
also got Aobia, which is kind of like the mainland where a lot of the main characters come from, and that's a giant tree. So essentially, it's a giant tree. It's the size of a nation, and it kind of just looms over the whole land. And the main people, the Aobians, live in that tree. And the tree is kind of broken into three distinct parts. So you've got the heart, the mind, and the soul. And the mind is where the government are basically settled. So the magisterium is what it's called, and they operate out of the mind. And the inspiration there was actually Plato's theory of the soul, which is that the human soul has three parts to it, right? Um, so yeah, there's that. There's also a lot of, I guess, themes around colonialization and settlement, and part of that has come from being an Australian, right? We often consider these days as Australians. I think we can never really undo this. We can't undo the past on the level that we want to, but um, Australian colonial history is a very interesting thing, and I think partially that's informed me in writing this book as well. So the Aobians are the original custodians of the land, and the humans have kind of come there and taken over. Um, yeah,
All right, all right, all right. What is it? Aeonians?
Aobians.
Aeobians. Okay.
Mm.
Aeobians. All right. Perfect. Perfect. Uh, your main hero. Tell me, give me like a quick. Well, tell me about your main hero.
Okay, the main hero in the novella, her name
Mm-hmm.
is Nisha. She is a plain old child. She has a very rough childhood. Um, Her father's a drunkard, and her mother suffers from extensive mental illness. She
Nice
basically,
lighthearted reading. No.
um, yes, that's right. She basically undergoes what's called the fever. And when you undergo the fever, there is a very high likelihood that you will die. However, the children who survive the fever tend to become what are called sleepers. And so sleepers are kind of these like ascended people, right? They are basically what make up the magisterium, and they've been blessed by the tree. Now, the way that I'm looking at it is a mixture of symbiosis and bioluminescent sciences. But the way that people recognize it is that the tree is a little bit like a spiritual god, and the tree has given these people that blessing. Um, and so she's kind of thrown into a life of responsibility um, and pastoral care for her people, but it's not the life that she wanted.
Okay. Okay. So you've got kind of regular woman, and she's dealing with like kind of this disease, right? And
Yeah,
you said like
young child as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Fascinating. Liking it. So and is she kind of going on like a particular like quest?
Yeah, so there's two main storylines in this, and that's another thing. When I was writing it, I wrote the first storyline part of it, and then I sat back and thought, this is not going to work without more context. So this little 30,000 book spans 100 years, and there are two timelines. So one timeline is Nietzsche's childhood growing into this role, and the other timeline is her as a young adult learning how to manage um, her people, like looking after her people in the context of war. So she's
And
actually at war with her people. Yeah,
well, and growing into the role, you mean into the role of like having become an
of being a
ascendant?
sleeper. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah. Mm.
Fascinating. All right, all right. Loving it, loving it, loving it. This is coming together for me. Um so she yeah, and I guess like she's kind of leading a battle, you said, right?
Yeah. So the battle that she's kind of present for is on top of a mountain pass, and at the top of the mountain, it's uncontested land. So there's the nation of Adira, who are kind of that kind of ancient Greek adjacent culture. They're humans, and then there's the nation of Theridor, and Theridor are kind of like the tyrants in the Western Mountains, and all of these people are coming together to fight on top of the mountain, um, and it
So
ends up becoming the end, I guess, of the war, the Greater War. But the bulk of the battle that we see there is pretty devastating. Yeah.
beautiful. All right. All right. All right. So ad libs, Josh. Generally, like I mean, the way it works is there'll be like a like a little story, and when you're doing it with someone, you're kind of looking at it and you're saying, okay, I need a noun, and you would provide a noun, right? I need, okay, an adjective, a verb, whatever, you would provide that sort of thing. And then you drop those into the story. And so you get something. Uh, obviously I'm asking you about hero description and, quest and that sort of thing. Not quite not as specific as like a noun or a verb, but I've got an idea here. We need a little music too. Hang on, let's see. What's the right vibe for this? Are we gonna maybe?
Is this
Let's
like a
try this.
Jeopardy vibe, or is it like?
No, no. What I need music to like kind of encapsulate your book here.
Okay, okay.
Oh, that's probably too mellow, I think, right?
I think
You
it's
hear
got a
it?
place, but it's probably too mellow. Yeah.
Okay, all right. We can do this. That's probably not right. That's not right. That's not right. What about that? Kind of epic? Yeah?
Yeah, it's a little bit more epic. I like that.
All right, all right, all right. We're gonna go with this. You ready?
Cool.
Now that we got all your bits, we're gonna put it all together. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
In a world inspired by colonial Australian history and Lebanon and France, Aobians are masters of a nation-sized tree. We follow a young woman as she... Oh, hang on. I'm gonna start over. I forgot to loop the music. We gotta loop the music. All right. Shake it off, Josh. We're gonna do this. Your movie trailer. Ready? Ad-libs our way to a movie trailer. Here we go. In a world inspired by Australian colonial history and Lebanon and France, the Aobians are masters of a nation-sized tree. Wait. Hang on. I need one more thing.
You're killing it.
I know. Hang on. I'm gonna add that we need. I can't believe I forgot this. Now we're gonna get this. And it's gonna see. This is what we need. See, we need this.
Hey, look at that.
All right, now we can get you a movie trailer. All right. In a world partially inspired by Australian colonial history as well as Lebanon and France, the Aobians are masters of a nation-sized tree. Our story, The Rest to the Gods, follows a young woman throughout her life as she becomes a sleeper. The sleepers are the heads of the soul, the masters of their organization, and she leads a battle that will determine the destiny of her people for years to come. Read The Rest to the Gods by Joshua Walker. Huh? I think it came together.
Yeah, that was good.
I think it came together in the end.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
I would suck at that game, by the way.
The ad-libs? Yeah. I'm not sure what's better, that cover or Josh's mustache. I mean, you make a good point. I would pay handsomely for a movie adaptation. I mean, how handsomely? Because maybe this could happen. I don't know if you just won the lottery or something.
It'd be so sick,
right?
It'd be so. I could see this as like kind of like an adult cartoon. Like something like those old like gritty DC movies, like that kind of like vein.
I like it. Have you seen that? Have you ever heard the Cradle series by Will White?
No, I haven't. I actually own all of them because I picked them up in one of his free sales that he did, and I've been keen to get into it. But time. But I'll get to it eventually. Yeah.
Like today, I think, is the last day of a Kickstarter he's running where he's trying to raise money to do an animation.
Oh, right.
He's raised $1 million. That's amazing. Right?
That's incredible.
I mean, like, it's nuts though. This is like his third Kickstarter, I think, because he's done at least 2 others where he's done special editions, like leather-bound editions.
Yeah.
And those also raised $1 million previously. But this one, like he kind of revealed his stretch goals way at the beginning, and his like end stretch goal was like 14 million. So it's just like that's too far, But crazy, amazing things.
Gotta shoot for gold though. Good on him.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, Yeah. Abel says the mustache bow. The mustache. It's pretty epic. All right. Well, I wanted to try making the movie trailer. I think that was fun. Took a couple sets to get it right, but I think we got a nice little movie trailer.
Yeah, that was cool.
What like edits would you make to my little movie trailer? What else should we know about the story? What's kind of your pitch?
Well, my pitch has been actually something that an early reader said to me.
Mm-hmm.
That was Redwall meets the Wheel of Time. So,
Great.
and I think that's pretty close. There is an anthropomorphized race of combative weasels in this world,
Okay.
and they're called the Hidden Ones, and they're kind of fighting on the Aobian side of the war. Um, and so, yeah, I think it definitely touches on those two influences specifically. But yeah, it's hard to say. There's a lot more going on as well.
Fair. Fair. Yeah. No, it sounds fun. I mean, like that mashup. Of
Mm,
course, this is the first book in a planned series, and
yeah,
the this is book 0.5, as you've said. So
that's
book
right.
one is coming
That's
out
right.
in June. Exciting. Tell us about
Yes.
that, and tell us about what the plan is for the whole series.
Yeah, so book one's set 50 years after the end of the rest of the gods. Nisha is a bit more of a mentor character, and that's half the reason I needed to try to flesh her out actually for that book. Um, Essentially, An Exile of Water and Gold is about um, two main characters who are betrothed to one another,
Hmm.
and one of them is removed from his life, um, kind of um, thrown away, so to speak. And I was partially inspired by the moment in Toy Story where where Buzz Lightyear is knocked out the window, right?
Right.
And I was thinking, this is such a basic and clever inciting incident, and it's legendary. Toy Story 1 for me is one of the best movies ever written.
Top tier.
It's
Yep.
just great storytelling.
Hmm.
And I was thinking, what if what if I had a character who went through something similar to that? Um, but they didn't die. No one knew
Hmm.
where they were. Their people would count that as an exile, even though typically an exile is something that has to be done to you,
Hmm.
and no one would know who did it to him. And
Hmm.
so that was kind of like where I started with that. The main character's name is Drift, and it's a very significant name. It's a very obviously significant name. And he basically is working on a viaduct wall, and his boss basically potentially cuts his harness. That's what he suspects, and he falls off, falls down a massive waterfall, and his life begins anew, and he can never go home again. Meanwhile, his betrothed is trying desperately to get him home, trying to find out where he is, um, but it's hard, right? And so there's that dichotomy of like what two people um, do as they are forced to pull apart.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of other stuff happening in the background as well.
So I'm curious now. The betrothed is trying to find him, but everyone thinks that he's exiled, which is a shunning, right? So what is the kind of
That's right.
societal reaction to her trying to find him?
Yeah. So essentially, she works with Nisha, and Nisha basically tries to get her to help investigate this crime, but cannot make any promise that if they find Drift again, that he can come back home. And so
Okay.
it's one of those things where hopefully she'll find an answer, but she's kind of led by the nose a little bit.
That sounds really interesting. I'm interested. I want to read more. Um, Clearly there's some like romance elements in this story. How much are you playing this up?
It's not super romantic in the sense of like sexual content at all,
Sure.
but it's romantic in the sense of I guess like deep love and like what that means, what that looks like, especially when two people have been together for so long. Um, and the other thing about the Aobian people is that they live longer than humans, right? So their average lifespan is 200-ish years.
Wow.
So when we start book one, Drift and his betrothed Tarry, they're both kind of 50 years old. But that's kind of for us, that's coming out of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
teenage years. It's like,
They're
big
they're having their
25.
quarter life
So
crisis. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's kind of a lot of complexity there, I think.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. That sounds cool. And so
Mm.
this is coming out in June. Um, and how many books are planned in the series?
So I'm planning for 4 or 5. I'll stretch to 5 if I have to, but I'd like to get it done in 4 if possible.
Nice.
But
And
there's always that thing of once you start working on the middle books, they just start to kind of, blow
yeah,
out. So we'll have to
just
see.
try not to pull a Robert Jordan and we'll be fine, right? Like
That's right. That's
uh
right.
uh that doesn't include the novella, right?
No, so the idea
So
that there'll be a novella between each of the main books.
okay, so we've got 4 or 5 full-length novels plus like
Yeah,
four-ish like novellas. Wow.
yeah, correct. Yeah. And each
Nice.
of the
Nice.
novellas will focus on a different character's origin story, but typically it'll be a side character. It won't be one of the main characters.
Sure. That's cool. That sounds really fun. Um, Briefly, I mentioned Robert
Yeah.
Jordan. Just uh I think I just learned the other day Robert Jordan wrote the Conan books. Is that right?
So I think he wrote a Conan series, but
Right?
he's not the same person as Robert Howard. So I
Okay,
think there's
okay.
that distinction there. Yeah.
I was like, wait, he wrote Wheel of Time and Conan the Barbarian? What? But
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, he actually wrote a lot of
that is
Conan books.
crazy. I
Yeah.
think like Daniel B. Green is gonna do a first and last on a Conan book, and I think he posted the cover somewhere. Have you ever seen his first and last Daniel B. Green's first and last little series?
I don't know if I have. I've been watching Daniel for years since he was a new YouTuber actually, but I don't know if I've
Oh,
seen
really?
that particular series.
He reads like the first chapter of a book, and then he tries to like see if he can kind of
Oh
guess at what
yes.
the end is gonna be, and he reads like the last chapter. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so cool.
good stuff. Good stuff. All right, if you're just joining us, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe button. We're talking to Joshua Walker, but he prefers Josh. Don't call him Joshua. He's going to think that he's in trouble. um, Again, good to have you, Josh. Appreciate it. So we've talked a little bit about kind of your books, your upcoming stuff. We're looking forward to your first full length book in June. You've got the novella "The Rest to the Gods" already out. Good stuff. Now I want to get behind the pages and talk to you a little bit. You're an Australian. You're here at 4:30 in the morning. Ridiculous. Love it. Thank you for coming to be here. But you have like the most Australian story slash fantasy story I've ever heard. A dragon stole your lunch.
Oh yeah, this is a good story.
What?
I
What?
I used to go on summer camps a lot as a kid with my friends, and we'd have some supervisors who worked at school, and they'd take us on these camps, and they'd be so much fun, you know. And one particular year, we went out to a place called Kangaroo Valley, and Kangaroo Valley is kind of to the south of Sydney,
Okay.
kind of close to another big town called Wollongong, or Kiama. They're both beach towns, but Kangaroo Valley was a little bit more inland. And so here's the thing: I was there with another friend of mine who was also called Josh, and we arrived at the camp and realized about a day into the camp that it was actually a bike camp, and we didn't have bikes with us. So the big expedition that was meant to happen on the second day was to
Mm-hmm.
kind of ride up this mountain down the other side to a lake, right, that connected up with the stream. Um, and so we got woken up at about 5 in the morning by our supervisors, and they said, "Look, you didn't bring a bike, so here's lunch. Start moving." So
No.
we we were probably 13 or 14 at the time. So we started walking up this mountain, did the whole walk. It was a scorcher, man. It was like 36, 38 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it was bloody hot. Hold
That's
on,
hot.
what is that? 38 C, what is that? 100, yeah,
Right.
100 Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And yeah, so we did the whole walk and we got there around lunchtime, and we were expecting everyone to follow behind it on their bikes in the next kind of half an hour.
Sure.
So we needed to cool down, right? We got all the food out, we put it on the ground with our bags, and we jumped into the lake. We were having a swim, and at one point we looked up, and there was this whopper of a lizard. And when I say whopper, like you can't even put into words how large these things are, right? Like you just have to see one. They're called a monitor lizard or a dragon, and essentially, um, it grabbed the 2 loaves of bread that we'd brought with us
Yeah.
and just took off, ran up a tree. We never saw
I
the bread again.
I've seen a monitor at a pet store actually, and they like that this pet store you used to if you paid $5, they'd feed it a rat.
Yeah, cool.
Right. Right. Those
That's
are
so
oh yeah,
cool.
but that gives you a sense of the scale. This thing will just eat a rat like it's a snack, you know? They were
Oh yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, and like, yeah, I mean, very clever. Like he discarded the plastic bags, ate the bread, very
Not his
smart,
first
and did it
rodeo.
all up a tree as well. You know,
He knew what he was doing. Wow. Wow.
the thing is, we had everyone rock up after that, and our supervisors were like, "Where's the bread?" And we were like, "It's this lizard took it." You know, sounds like the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Oh no. The lizard stole my lunch, and they're like, "What? Did your
That's
dog eat
right.
your
Yeah,
homework too?" Like,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah.
no. That is, I feel though, like, I mean, as a non-Australian, to me, it's the most quintessential Australian story to have something about like a large and somewhat dangerous animal, you know? Yeah, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
And a dragon, no less. Well done. Definitely gives you the fantasy bona fides, you know? Um,
That's right.
but I understand too, at one point you've been a stateside and you were fleeing New Orleans. I feel like that's the quintessential American story to be fleeing a large metro area.
Yeah, yeah. That was another crazy experience. But yeah, we 2 of my friends and I did a massive kind of tour of the states back in
Nice.
2019. It was right kind of before the pandemic in the summer of that year.
Okay.
And we'd driven from where were we before that? We drove from Austin to New Orleans,
Okay.
and then when we got
That's a
to New
long drive.
Orleans,
How do you like driving through Texas? Although I imagine like parts
I
like
like it.
I think like a lot of the middle of Australia is kind of the same in that there's just a lot of
Yeah,
nothing between the cities, right?
yeah. The
Right.
thing in Australia is that there's a lot of nothing. You're absolutely right, but the terrain changes. So, for example,
Okay.
I live in Melbourne, which is in the south,
Okay.
and I can drive to Sydney, and the terrain will barely change. But if you drive from Sydney to Brisbane, which is in Queensland at the top, it
Mm-hmm.
just becomes rainforest on the way up, and it's delicious. Like it's beautiful, you know, and it's right by the sea as well. So
Nice.
the terrain does kind of diversify while you're traveling through. But yeah, I did notice going from Austin to New Orleans that not much changed, and we made yeah, we only made a couple of stops because we wanted to get there, but um,
Drive for
when we
four
did get
hours and
there,
be like, did we actually move? It looks exactly the
yeah,
same. Yeah.
oh, 100%. And it
Yeah.
was, you know, it was bloody hot as well at that time of year.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we were just gunning it through. Um, and we got there, got to the Airbnb and went to sleep. And then the next morning, um, we woke up to our phones um, with these kind of emergency notifications just going off.
Uh-oh.
And we never really heard anything like that. I don't know if we have public emergency notifications like that enabled in Australia, or maybe we just don't really have these kinds of
Sure.
emergencies often enough to know. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so the yeah, phones were going crazy, and we turned the news on, and there was a tornado
Ooh,
just kind
no.
of coming through,
Yeah.
and we had no experience of this. Like tornadoes are not a thing in Australia. Hurricanes are, but you have
Mm-hmm.
to be in the very high tropics, and they're quite rare.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, we were kind of like fish out of water. And so, you know, we thought we did everything right. You know, we kind of, you know, hid in our bed linen and blah blah blah. And then the guy who owned the Airbnb lived next door. So him and his friend came knocking and checked in to see if we were okay. And he said, "Come have a look at this. This is a picture of New Orleans for you." And he gave us a paddle board and an oar. And he said, "Just hop on and head down the street and have a look." And we were able to paddleboard down the street. It was incredible. So um, I've got videos of this actually. So I'll have to see if I can send you some afterwards. Pretty
Was
cool.
it
But we were just paddleboarding around the street. Yeah,
so it was like super flooded, I guess?
yeah,
I get
yeah,
well, yeah. I
significantly
mean, New
so.
Orleans is like it's built in a bowl, so it definitely
That's right. Yeah, and we were at the top of a hill, so
wow.
the streets that were kind of at the bottom were pretty
Where's
roughed up. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So, and then, during the day, I think the hurricane was kind of building on the news. People started to get a lot more worried. We drove past a Walmart and everyone was kind of queued up buying
yeah,
canned
yeah,
foods.
yep.
And when we saw that, we were like, uh-oh, this could be bad because we've got a rental car that we
Yeah.
didn't add the insurance premium on for. And we have to get to
Regrets.
Memphis.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so we ended
yes.
up driving to Memphis at probably 2 a.m. I think we got to Memphis. So we left at like what was
Wow.
it, 9 p.m. or something,
Yeah.
and the rain had just started to set in, and it was one of the craziest drives I think I've ever done in my life. So
All right. So you're an you're an Australian. You're an Australian. You've come for this big like summer adventure in the United States. You made it for across Austin, across Texas. You're over to New Orleans. You're hanging out in New Orleans, this party town, and you're like, whoop whoop. Your phone goes off. You get emergency notification that it's a tornado. Oh no! What do I do? Because you never had a tornado before. You're bundling up in your bed linens, and your Airbnb host comes over from next door and's like, "Hey, you all right?" You say, "We're fine, I guess. Are we?" He's like, "Yeah, it's fine. Hop on this paddleboard. Go paddle down a flooded street." You do that for a while, but then you notice that actually, like, even though there was a hurricane, sorry, a tornado, there's a hurricane coming because people are starting to prepare for it, and you're like, "I didn't get the insurance on the car. We better get out of here." You and your buddy get in the car and you're going to Memphis at 2 in the morning, and that's your experience in the United States. Did I get it all right? Like a nice tight package.
yeah, I mean, we were there for a lot longer, so we'd seen heaps before we got
Oh
to
my
Austin,
god.
and
Yeah.
then we'd seen heaps after we got to Memphis. But
Yeah.
goodness me, it was a
What?
moment, it was a
Yeah.
moment. Yeah,
New Orleans was maybe
yeah.
not the highlight. Did you get to do like any of the fun stuff in New Orleans before that, or?
We went down to Cafe Du Monde,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and because that was kind of like the classic thing. We wanted to go and have a beignet down there,
Yeah.
and so we went there, but there was no one there, man. Like there were like two
Everyone was like,
waitresses and
"Get
like
out of town!" Right? Yeah. Yeah.
no one was there, and they were kind of looking at us like, "What are you guys doing here?" We were like, "Oh, we're Australian," and they were like, okay, we get it,"
Like, we don't know.
So
Yeah. 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 That's funny. That's funny.
yeah,
Did you go to Bourbon
but yeah, it
Street
was
at
a good
all,
time.
or you probably? I mean, I know you were tight on time.
We had the plan to do that
Yeah.
night, but because we had to leave, yeah, it
Yeah.
was a very short stop. But I want to go back and see New Orleans properly. So
We were gonna go to
yeah,
Bourbon Street, but a hurricane was coming. Yeah, yeah. That's the full New Orleans
yeah, yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I believe it was called. If you want to look it up, I believe it was called Hurricane Barry. And
Yeah.
the day after we arrived in Memphis, it ended up blowing out to the Miami coast. But yeah,
Oh, okay, okay. But
yeah.
I've been there before. I used to live in Central Florida, and in 2004 there were some hurricanes that were coming like right for me, and and I remember with my mother, we were waiting overnight at Home Depot for them to get more plywood so we could board up the windows and like,
Oh wow,
right? And I was
wow.
I in like retrospect, this feels too on the nose, but the music that I chose to keep playing that night was "When the Levee Breaks" by Led Zeppelin.
Perfect.
Right? Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, you just add that little soundtrack in your mental picture of waiting out front of the Home Depot overnight to get plywood. What a yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well, I'm glad you made it out of, no trouble with the hurricane, just a little frightening for a while. That's good.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. No, good fun. One of my favorite trips that I've ever done in my life was going across the states, so we had a blast.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
So that's fun. And I mean, you've done lots of different. That's one of your favorite trips in your life, but you've done some different things in your life that are kind of fun and exciting. You've used to, well, these days you're a teacher. That's your day gig.
Mhm. Yeah.
Seems like a pretty decent day. Do they do? I don't know. What is the academic calendar like in Australia? Here in the United States, we do summer break in our summers, and so like teachers generally will have like a bunch of time off. Do you get that too?
Yeah, so we've got summer break as well. So I just came off summer break,
Nice,
probably 2 weeks ago now. Yeah. So I'm going
nice,
into the third term of term 1, next
nice.
week. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Oh, it's
spoke
the
with.
best. And
Go
yeah.
ahead. Go
Sorry,
ahead. Go
go
ahead.
on.
No, no, no. You.
Oh, I was just thinking like, the summer break is great for a writer because you get so like I mean, this is when the rest of the gods came out, right? Was in my
Mm,
summer break, so I had time to actually get everything done.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the nose. I spoke with a woman a while ago. That is a um astrophysicist at a university, But she, because she's at the university and she's like a lecturer and whatnot, but she's on the academic calendar too, and she's like, I don't know how writers do it without a summer break. How could you,
Yeah,
right? Um,
it's an absolute blessing. I love it.
nice, nice. Seems like a pretty decent gig, at least in that regard. But used to be, and the picture from I have on your thumbnail was from back in your music
Mm.
days. You used to do a lot of music, and even
Yeah, I used to do heaps of music.
you were a guitar salesman and repairman. Like I assume that you must
Yep.
play guitar, if I imagine.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do play guitar. I've played in heaps of bands over the years. I kind of grew up in the metal, hardcore scene ish.
Nice, nice.
Um, and yeah, my first job was at a music store. So yeah, spent my time just repairing guitars and selling guitars, and it was the best. I loved it. And then from that job, I went into tech. So I started working for a global tech company, which I'm not going to name here. And then after I did that for about 8 years, I went into teaching. So
Nice, nice.
yeah,
Good times, good time. So we also talked a little bit about our like shared love of pop punk. We're gonna
hey,
right, right,
yeah.
right. I want to
When you
briefly.
mentioned Newfound Glory the other day, I was like, oh, was it you that mentioned
Yeah,
Newfound Glory?
yeah, yep,
Someone did,
yep, yep,
and then
yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah. I was listening to Sticks and Stones last night and just having an absolute ball.
Ryan asked, "Do you teach via metal lyrics?" And I love that question. I feel like that would be hard. I don't know what course do you teach? What lessons? What subject?
I teach English, so which is really fitting for me. So I teach
Right.
Year 6 English, and my two novel studies are The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Hobbit.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, I love
I
it.
feel like you could maybe
Absolutely love
talk about metal lyrics in your. All right, so we've got Newfound Glory. Uh, can you hear it?
it. I can't know, but
All
this
right,
is
all
a
right, all right.
classic clip.
Right, right, yeah. Like music video, gotta love it, gotta enjoy it. Now, I quite like it, quite like the music. I have to tell you, Josh, I looked this up, and then I felt really old when I looked at their second most recent video. Look at the guitar player on a
Oh
lazy
no.
boy with a cane. I'm like, oh
Oh,
no, no. This is how I
that is
remember
fantastic.
them. This is how
Time
they are
flies, man.
today.
Time
Wah,
flies.
wah.
It's still
Oh
legendary though.
man. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
look at this.
Right?
That is crazy. Jordan's got the beanie on these days because he doesn't have any hair left.
Yeah.
That's so rock and
Oh, I
roll,
love
man.
the animal. The animal on the drum set. That's what's up. That's where it's at. But the poor guy on the lazy boy with the cane. That just. Oh man.
Is this a Warp
Like
Tour
a.
clip as well?
It might be.
It's got
Yeah,
to be
it's
right. Yeah,
pretty recent.
that is so cool.
He's like, look, I'm gonna play. Did you see though? When Dave Grohl broke his leg, he had like a massive throne that he would play on.
Yeah,
That's pretty
incredible.
sick. That's pretty metal.
Incredible. So cool.
Rip Warp Tour. Is Warp Tour not around
Yeah,
anymore?
I agree, Ryan.
Oh man.
I mean, I never got to attend because I'm not obviously from the States, but I used to watch the videos and just keep up with it online, and it looked like such a bop.
Yes, yeah, yes, yes. Such a. All right, so music, metal, making that stuff, pretty rad, pretty rad. I also, I've discovered that one of your favorite books is Name of the Wind.
Yeah, that
All
is a
right,
favorite.
I do enjoy it. It's probably one of if not the number one favorite book of mine. So I'm not here to give you a hard time about it at all. But I am going to bring back one
Yeah.
of my favorite segments from some early episodes of Person Behind the Pages that I called "How Dare They." So what I'm going to do, Josh, I'm going to read to you. Hang on, hang on. I got to see Fit for a King, Amity, Affliction. We came as one.
Ooh, that is a stacked lineup, man.
That's
That is
pretty
a
nice.
stacked lineup.
That's pretty
I've
nice.
seen uh I've seen three of those bands. I've seen Fit for a King, Amity many times because they're an Australian band, and Miss May I, and they all slay live. It's fantastic.
So very good. I want to do again. I'm going to bring back this segment that I used to do called "How Dare They." and in this segment, I will read a 1-star review of our mutual favorite book, Name of the Wind. And at any point, Josh, if you want to go, how dare they? And we'll just stop and talk about how wrong this person's review is. That's totally fine. That's what we're here for.
Let's do it. That sounds fun.
But we are not doing this review because, oh my god, this guy actually wrote
Mm,
his own novel. Are you kidding me? The legendary Mary
sounds
Sue
like a
of
true Name
Legend.
of the Wind fan. Oh,
I
jeez.
appreciate the title, but this is too much. This is too much.
Mm.
I'm gonna move this a little. I think I can move it here, and you still
I
okay?
mean, I've
Cool.
heard all this stuff before. Quoth
Yeah,
is a Mary
sure.
Sue of the worst caliber. That's what he writes there. That's a
Mhm.
classic criticism.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that one before.
If the protagonist were a woman, there would be no claim for this book.
Right,
I need
right,
to
right.
understand what that means.
Well, the suffering Quoth endured. The description of Quoth creating music, sympathy. What I didn't like, lazy writing. Okay, I disagree on that. You're wrong. How dare you? That's what we're going for with this. How dare
Yeah,
you lazy? How dare
I,
you?
I, this is the thing. Like Pat has, it doesn't matter what you think of him as a person or how his career has gone.
Yeah.
He has the most doctored, technically complex, and beautiful prose that I have read. Like the
Full
prose
stop.
is so
Yeah.
controlled in the Name of the Wind. Every single word on the page matters, and it's been
Yes.
considered.
Yes.
And once again, it's something that reminds me of Neil Gaiman. That sense of controlling your narrative with purpose. No one does it like him. No
Yeah.
one does it like him.
I agree. I loved like I was blown away because I didn't pick up on this on my own, but like a fan pointed out that Quoth says that at one point there's 7 words you can say to a woman to make them fall in love. Either Quoth says that
Yeah.
or someone says it to Quoth. And then if you look at
Mm,
his dialogue to Denna, most of the time it's in 7 words.
yeah.
It's like
It's so
who I know.
Oh, like when you go back, I mean, this is the thing. Like, this is why, to me, The Name of the Wind is one of the most infinitely rereadable books in the world, is because you can go back to it and go back to it and go back to it, and every time you just find these little nuggets of,
Yep.
you know, just
No.
tidy writing. You know,
Absolutely. Complete. I love to like I mean the way that he talks there's the scene where he's talking to we're going to do this. He's talking to uh, I guess I mean ultimately he's talking to Chronicler, but he's talking about how yeah, I get this is in Wise Man's Fear when Sim and Fella start falling for each other and he
all right,
says right like it was worth all the I'm paraphrasing, but he says it was worth kind of all the pain and the uncomfort. So I think this was after the fire in the fishery. Spoilers. But none of this is a big deal that I'm spoiling. But
no,
yeah, he
no,
like he
not for that book.
right. Yeah, he it was worth all the pain and the suffering just to see like the beginning of like of their romance bud, like that little beginning of a
Yeah,
spark.
that's
Not
right.
right.
Oh, I recall that line.
The way he speaks about it, it's like it's
Yeah,
so good. But it's also it's not I just love his writing because it is like poetic and beautiful, but it's not it's accessible. It's not a
yeah,
challenge that you need to like really unpack his meaning. The meaning is clear and that's what's beautiful about it. He's just described it in a really elegant and delightful way, you know?
yeah. I agree. I think also like it's never overstated and it's never over sentimental. And it's hard, I think, when you're writing these very, you know, emotionally kind of intimate kind of scenes, right? Like, which he's so good at. He's so good at these like very emotional
Right.
moments, and he never over sentimentalizes any of it, and it's just perfect, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's my awesome heroic account narrated by me. My name is Quoth. My awesome heroic account
Oh, here
narrated
we
by
go.
me is pure truth, I assure you. Do not worry, folks. You're looking for a review. I'm giving you one. We'll get to that in a minute, but first, find some time to listen to me. You don't have time? What makes you think you can leave here knowing what you know? I said this exact sentence in my book. Okay. Now you want to listen to me after I gave you a death threat? Good. When you take note, do not presume to change a word I say. I also said this in the book. I'm gifted. Not just gifted in one way, I'm gifted in every freaking way. I'm skilled with music, acting, medicine, chemistry, alchemy, things you might call magic. In fact, anything cool, you name it. See, how dare they?
This is the Mary Sue thing, right?
Right.
But like, I don't agree. Like, and look, it's not that I don't agree. Like, I think on a basic level, that sentence tells me something that is true, but it's still like I think we're forgetting that quote is still a picture of real life. Like, I teach kids who are like this. I teach the kid who is just a gun at absolutely everything they do at school. And they've got completely different sets of challenges to other children as a result, right? So I think what Pat's doing is he's kind of showing off the talents of Quoth, but Quoth is so bad at at basic kind of human interaction on some levels, right?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes, exactly, right? Yeah, it totally discounts like the things that he's just trash at. He's he's so bad with Denna, for one thing.
oh,
He makes some terrible judgment calls along the way, you know? Like, and there are
and he's bad
moments
with
where
his
I'm like,
friends, you know.
huh?
That he's bad with his friends, like like they don't want to stand up for him sometimes because he's horrible, like,
Right.
and he
Right.
doesn't have that filter.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we're in agreement here. When I was only about 12, I devoured months lessons grown-ups would take years to learn. I had flash fast, word for word, page for page memory. They ended up paying me instead of charging me for tuition. I was the youngest in quite a while. In barely a week, I owned a teacher so hard, embarrassed him in front of the class, making him hate me for life. In return, I was punished unfairly, but also rewarded with a rank students took years to earn. I mean, yeah, yeah. I only
True.
I only took a few days. I saved women. One of the most beautiful girls in the school even invited me into her room, which I refused, of course. See,
Oh my goodness.
I mean, again, he's an idiot. He's
Well, this is the thing. Like, this review is working against itself in some ways.
yes, yes. I was too pure to do that. No, he wasn't too pure. He didn't even he was too young and naive to understand the opportunity
Yeah,
that
it's
was
too
before
naive.
him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I've been there. I've been
Oh,
there. You
haven't
are.
we all?
Yeah, I'm sure every guy has been like, "Ooh, that was a missed opportunity," right? uh, I bested my rivals every time we confronted each other in this book, at least. Is that true? Did he best Ambrose every time?
That's the thing, right? Like, look at Ambrose. Like, oh, man, Ambrose is one of the most despicable people I've ever
Mm.
read in my life. And if I can take that away from the book, then that means that quote has not bested him to the best of his abilities. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that speaks for itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Ambrose is a great villain. Yeah.
Mm.
I think that.
I mean, he's got that Draco Malfoy thing going on, right?
Uh huh.
Where they're a great villain because they reflect everything that the main character is and is not. So Ambrose takes stuff that is on quotes inside and externalizes it. But the stuff that quote presents to other people is not something that Ambrose is capable of. So so that's kind of like the dichotomy there, right? And they're very
Yeah.
relatable because they're both students in the same university, etc., etc. So
Yep. 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 Yeah. Great points. Just skipping ahead a little bit, not yet apparent in this book, but printed on the back cover. I've stolen princesses back from Sleeping Borrow King. This is in the very beginning when he's first talking to Chronicler. He says
yeah,
these things, but I
yeah,
burned down the town of Trebon. That is in Name of the Wind.
yeah. It is. That's towards the end, right, with the dragon.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
Dracus. It's a
the
you know
Dracus. Yeah.
right. And I love the title of the book. Like, is it the common mating habits of or the common
Oh
something
yeah, that's
of
right.
the common Dracus? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the book where you like yeah.
Yeah.
Was expelled from the unit. Yep. Talk to the gods, love them, and written songs that make them mention my name is my name is Quoth,
Not
not
Mary
Mary
Sue.
Sue.
I like that.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know, man. Again, how dare this reviewer? How dare they?
I think like to give a one-star review that is that detailed means that the book has weighed on your mind enough to make some kind of impression, right?
Yeah,
Like I read last year I read Yellowface by
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca Kwan, who is the author of the Poppy War. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and that book was just like, it was like a slap to the face in so many ways. It was utterly brilliant, and it was equally as sickening to read. And and when I put it down, I did not know whether I realistically wanted to give it 1 or 5 stars, genuinely.
Wow.
So I think like if a book kind of sits with you, like that,
Right.
it's not a 1 star. It's not a 1 star, you know.
Right. Right. Did you give it 5 stars, or did you? Have you given it a
I,
review at all?
yeah. I wrote a very short review on my Goodreads profile. I think I ended up giving it 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I
That's
do
good.
highly recommend it though. It's a brilliant book.
Right? I think, sometimes we need art that challenges us. But I will say sometimes I think we also need art that's comforting, you know?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
they serve two different needs, I think, and depends on kind of what else is going on in life versus to what the consumer of the art wants and needs, right? Yeah.
That's exactly
Uh
right. Like I think when I
Go ahead.
reflect on stuff that I was reading as a young person, like The Name of the Wind was exactly the opposite of that, right? Like obviously there's an entertainment value, but it just spoke to me on so many levels, like you know, writing technicality,
Yeah.
story structure, and even above that, like just the depth of storytelling, right? In that book is just astounding. And
Yeah.
then there's other books like, you know, growing up with Redwall, right? Where I look at Redwall now and I admire it because I think it's actually very technical writing for the audience that it's focused on. But
Mhm.
as a child, it was just like, it's just bewildering. It's just like that sense of wonder, you know, just
Mhm.
trickling through constantly. So, you know, stories serve purposes. That's what they're there for.
Nice. Nice. Um Well, I want to kind of get things starting to wrap up a little bit, but first, if there's anything you want to talk about, please do. But one thing I do want to kind of ask you about is you're the co-founder of the Break-ins, and coming up, we'll get to talk with you and the other co-founder on my channel in a couple weeks. So we don't need to dive too deep into all that, but if tell me just a little bit about what the Break-ins is and how you started it.
Yeah, I'm actually working on an article at the moment for somebody else that is going to be all about what I'm going to talk about now, which is the importance of finding a community. And
Mm,
and like essentially when I was kind of wrapping up book one, getting my beta feedback and preparing it for revisions, and I was also writing the novella, but I started thinking in my head, look, I've got I've got my social profiles, I've done all the reading, you know, I literally had spent every waking moment of my life not teaching, just researching writing, right? So so I knew what to do. Like clinically I knew what to do, diagnostically I knew what to do, but you can't apply it without also being human. You know what I mean? And so I kind of got to this point where I was like, oh yeah, here's my Twitter page with like 50 followers or whatever. Like, how am I actually going to develop this? Like what am I going to do next? I don't know anyone. I wish I knew more authors. Like, I need to talk to people who know what to do from the inside. And I need to
mhm.
like, you know, and make friends because it is so isolating. Writing is so isolating, and like part of that is a joy for me. You know, like I enjoy getting that quiet time
Yes.
and like you know doctoring my prose or whatever whatever it is I'm doing. I love that, but you know, in and amongst that, you need people that you can go back and talk to the hobby about, and people who are dead serious about the business side of it. The more people that you've got in your support network that you can talk to about that stuff, the better it is, right? So that's where the idea came from. I basically just saw um, Scott. Um, I saw his map. He revealed his map on Twitter, and and like he was in a similar position. He had nearly the same amount of followers as me, and I was looking at his profile and I was going, man, this guy is doing. I can tell he's doing everything right, and it seems like the research he's doing is very similar to me, but like the stuff's not speaking for itself because our network's not big enough. So I messaged him and I was just like, hey man, like I love your map. It's sick. Like I you know, feel awkward saying this because I'm a massive introvert, but I need a buddy, you know,
Yeah.
and um, and we kind of got talking. We hit it off because he and I, as it turned out, had the exact same processes. Like we were doing everything the same way without realizing. We were thinking what we were going to do next in very similar ways as well. And at some point, he or I don't remember who suggested it, suggested setting up a Discord channel and just inviting other debuts into it. And the idea was that there are people who were debuting in 2023 or 2024, and that was it.
Yeah.
And we're just going to be there for each other. And because I think like strength in numbers, right? Like no one in the community really wants to be competing with one another. They
Yeah.
just want to be
Yeah.
doing well for themselves
We're all
and
here for
celebrating
more
everyone
good
else.
stories. We are all here for more good stories. That's what we want, and we're so
Yeah.
happy to help everyone else get more good stories. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's super cool. I didn't realize that like when you and Scott started it that you guys actually like didn't know each other at all. And it started
No.
so organically with just the two of you, and then you're like, "Well, what if it's more than just the two of us?"
Yeah, that's right. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm glad I had Scott because he definitely has more of that kind of outgoing, extrovertedness than I do. So it was really good to bounce ideas off him and then have him be able to action some stuff and me action some stuff. And I think we bring both of our skill sets to the table, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I got to tell you, when I wrote this ugly thing, it was very much like the same situation. Like I found it so isolating. But that was also, I don't know. Well, I mean, I know that you were kind of shopping that book around in 2019. Had you like written anything with the intent to publish it earlier? Because so I wrote that like so that's what like 2013, 20 like
Okay.
11 and 20, yeah, like 2009 is probably when I started writing that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, no, like for me, like that book, the Child of Light, which I showed you before, I've been working on that actually since I was a kid. And so
Okay,
it was
wow,
kind of
nice.
that 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 long-standing draft that, you're constantly redrafting because you're getting better as a writer because you're growing
Yeah.
up, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I hit that point where I was in my 20s and I was like, yeah, like I know what to do now. I can now write this properly. However, the problem was that the story was innately not good enough. So it didn't
Mhm.
matter that my writing was good by that point. And actually I got great feedback at one point from one of my favorite agents in the world who I wanted desperately to work with. And he sent me the friendliest rejection letter ever. And I've got it saved on my emails forever because it is just amazing. But he basically said, like, you're a great writer, but like, you got to move on from this idea. Like this is the kind of thing where, like, if you write something else, um, you're probably going to see massive changes. And that's all I had to do. I put pen to paper with the Sleepers books, and it's just changed the game. You know,
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I remember way back in fifth grade when I was starting to write like my very first book. There was reading time in class, and I convinced the teacher to let me do writing time instead. So my first book idea, like the only things I remember really are that it was some like sci-fi adventure that definitely had some like Star Trek vibes, but the alien race was inspired by my neighbor's basset hound dog, so it was going to be like some anthropomorphic like bipedal dogs with big floppy ears,
big
like yeah,
ears.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's so good.
Is
I
it?
love that.
Is it? Yeah.
I would read about an anthropomorphic basset hound alien race. That sounds sick. That sounds
That's
so
super
sick.
funny. That's yeah,
I'm
thank
so down for that. That's cool.
you.
But
uh
I actually had a similar tactic to you. Like I would try to finish my exams early. We'd have
and yeah,
2 week exam periods. And so
yeah,
every 2 week exam period, I'd try to finish my exam 10 minutes early.
yep.
And then the teacher would say, okay, cool, you can just read silently now. And I'd be like, can I write? And the teacher would like look at me like, why would you want to do that? You've just been writing an essay for like 2 hours. And I was like, no, no, I just want to write, like
Let me
work on
write
my
a
story. And that's
story.
where I got
Yeah,
my writing done,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Love it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yep. Um, yeah, but definitely can't agree with you more. Like, it's nice to have the community. I'm glad to be part of the break-ins now. Glad that you got it set up.
Oh, it's good to have you, man.
And
100%.
I love the like, now engaging more, doing more interviews, just kind of engaging more with the author community that does exist now. That I don't feel, and maybe it's just because I was on the outside, but I don't feel like things existed the same way they do now. I don't feel like that existed in like 2009, 2010, you know? But it's so nice to be able to connect with people now. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
And people are just so friendly. Like you can reach out to nearly anyone, and they'll have a chat, and I love that, you know, because for
Absolutely.
someone like me, I think this is why, to an extent, is that creatives just are all similar in the sense that creative people tend to have like a bit of like melancholy to their temperament, um, or maybe just a bit of introvertedness. I don't know what it is, but
Sure.
everyone is just so happy when someone reaches out to them. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I love it. Like I've never really found a community like that before. So
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Your debut coming out soon. Briefly, Scott, I think he doesn't have his debut out yet. Does he? I don't think he has a novella out yet, does he? Help me out, because there's so many
yeah,
Dickens. It's hard to keep track of where everyone's at right now.
yeah. So Scott's book is coming out soon. I'm
Okay.
not
Okay.
100%
Okay.
sure, but I think it's April or May, and
Right.
that's a memory of song. And
Right.
I can guarantee you that it is fantastic.
Oh, nice.
I've read a part of it, and I've also
Okay.
read his novella, which is coming as well
Later.
after the release of the first book, and that's
Right.
brilliant. The novella is utterly brilliant. So yeah,
Nice. Nice. Good
definitely have to keep your
praise.
eyes out for that. Yeah,
Good stuff, man. Cool. All right. Josh, this has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for waking up in the middle of the night to come be on my little show. Where can
no
people
worries,
find and
dude.
follow you online?
Yeah, so Twitter, I'm at jwalkerwrites is my handle. On Instagram, it's jlw.author. And my website is www.joshuawalkerauthor.com. And I think
Nice.
if you go to my website, you can get the novella for free if you just want to check out my work and get a taste of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go get yourself a free novella. Get yourself some free reading. What are you waiting for? Go do it. All right. Thanks again, Josh. Thank you guys for watching, whether you're here live or you're watching a replay. Appreciate it. It's having tons of fun doing these interviews live. There's definitely going to be more in the future. Ryan Skeffington was in the chat. Going to be talking with him next week. Also going to be talking with another woman
Awesome.
named Katie Kybert Gibbons, who is a children's book author. Wrote a book about adoption, and she's a therapist that worked with adopted families and a adopted child when she was young, and an adoptive parent. Super cool lady. I'm excited for that one too. Give me that like and that
That sounds awesome.
subscribe. Keep things checked out. And if no one's told you yet today, you're an absolute legend.